この空気はうまいな。
メリオダス様、かぶるだけで十分かと。
それもそうだな。さ、着替え着替え。
Dass ich so viel Gerüchte und Informationen wie möglich über...
Keine Panik, ich führe nur einen Größencheck durch.
So weird. This whole place looks totally deserted.
Gather round, for the tale of the 7 deadly sins takes a dark and unexpected turn. Betrayal lurks around every corner, friendships are put to the ultimate test, and hidden powers reveal themselves in ways that will alter the course of history. Hold your breath, for what comes next is a whirlwind of events that will shake the very core of this enchanted world. Episode 13. Meliodas, the once jovial and level-headed leader, brandishes his sword with an unsettling ferocity. In a swift stroke, he slices off Gila's hand to retrieve his lost weapon. Gila, unconscious and handless, is barely saved by Jericho's super recovery spell. As Gila wakes, she senses a deeply unsettling magical aura emanating from Meliodas. Ban, a figure generally imbued with an immortal resilience, questions Meliodas' identity. The response is cruel and swift. Meliodas cleaves him in half. Elizabeth and Hawk, witnesses to this gruesome act, struggle with a haunting question. Is this the Meliodas they know? Meliodas next sets his eyes on Helbram, engaging him in a vicious duel. It's not mere combat. It's an exploration, a testing ground where Helbram employs his hunter wisps to evaluate the depth of Meliodas' newly attained power. It appears as though Meliodas gains an upper hand, but a surge of magical energy from Hendrickson tips the scales. Defeat looms as Helbram subdues Meliodas. Meanwhile, Hauser contemplates recent events, disturbed by the chasm into which Marmus cast Diane. His ponderings are interrupted by an unusual sight. A mammoth pig appears, with a house strapped to its back, depositing Diane's clothes into the open abyss. As Meliodas grapples with defeat, salvation arrives. Diane erupts onto the scene, liberating Meliodas from Helbram's grasp. Using her Mother Earth catastrophe technique, she alters the very ground beneath them. Helbram narrowly escapes, but the magical link between him and Hendrickson is severed, leaving the latter to question Helbram's fate. In a tender moment among chaos, Diane presents the incapacitated Meliodas to their comrades. Ban retaliates for earlier betrayal with a powerful punch, while Elizabeth embraces Meliodas, pleading for no more dark surprises. Their moment is interrupted by Griamore, who emerges from the rubble still holding the lifeless Veronica. Elizabeth, grieving, asks that her sister be buried by the lake where they once played, swearing vengeance upon the Holy Knights. In a disconcerting twist, Meliodas realizes his sword has been stolen yet again. Elsewhere, Helbram rejoices in the safety of Gila and Jericho, for he holds in his possession Meliodas' stolen sword, a crucial key to reviving the Demon Clan. In another corner, Hauser learns of Veronica and Griamore's demise, struggling to accept the cruel reality, even as tensions between factions of the Holy Knights begin to crumble. United in their grief and resolve, Elizabeth and Diane vow that things will change. Backing them are Meliodas and the rest of the 7 deadly sins, each preparing for the battles that lie ahead. King and Ban spar with one another, a rehearsal for reclaiming the kingdom. Ban reveals that once the kingdom is safe, he seeks the horn of Cernunnos to summon the goddesses and resurrect Elaine. Meliodas, coming to terms with the present, promises an end to a war that has stretched on for over 3,000 years. The world stands on a knife's edge, with destinies intertwined and fates hanging in the balance. And so the stage is set for conflicts more grand and stakes higher than ever before. In a world teetering on the edge, choices made now will echo through eternity. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What is the most overrated arc in anime? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in a future video. Episode 14. Deep in the heart of the Orden Forest, an armor giant and a young boy named Alan seek refuge from the rain in a cave. The odd pairing catches the attention of the Holy Knights, Gila, Jericho, and Helbram, via an informant. Helbram decides to dispatch Dawn Roar, an elite squad, to eliminate the armor giant, leaving Jericho visibly upset. She feels slighted for not being chosen, but Gila suggests that they take the opportunity to rest and prepare for upcoming battles. Off-duty, Gila visits her brother Zeal, who has had the misfortune of being mugged. Fuming, Gila metes out her form of justice, hunting down and killing the thugs responsible for her brother's assault. Simultaneously, Meliodas and his crew settle into their new forested surroundings. While Elizabeth and Hawk are dispatched to a nearby village for herbs, the rest embark on a hunting expedition. Meliodas and Bond turn the simple task into a competition, each striving to outdo the other. As Meliodas boasts about capturing a sword wolf, King is found dozing off. Prodded by Band's mention of Diane, King reluctantly agrees to find something of his own. However, their banter is interrupted by a mysterious growl that reverberates through the forest, prompting them to investigate its source. Back in the village, Elizabeth and Hawk encounter Alan, who is searching for glue. The boy discloses that he needs it to mend a gaping hole in the armor giant's chest. His vague response to whether he's a friend of the giant leaves Elizabeth and Hawk intrigued. As Meliodas, Bond, and King follow the mysterious sound, they stumble upon a battlefield littered with defeated soldiers. One of the fallen reveals that Dawn Roar is pursuing the armor giant. Putting the pieces together, Meliodas surmises that the armor giant might actually be Gauther. They hasten their pace to reach him before Dawn Roar does. Reaching their destination, the trio finds themselves locked in a standoff against Dawn Roar, who are also aiming for the armor giant. The tension is heightened when Alan arrives, apologizing for his failure to find the glue to repair the armor giant. As they prepare to engage in what promises to be a catastrophic battle, a deadly arrow is launched toward the armor giant. Alan intercepts it in midair and unveils his true identity. He is Gauther, the goat sin of lust. What unfolds is a complex tapestry of conflicts, alliances, and hidden identities. It is a moment that punctuates the ever-shifting dynamics between friends and foes. Meliodas, Bond, and King find themselves once again united with another of their own, but under the most fraught of circumstances. Meanwhile, Gila struggles with her own family obligations and moral compass, highlighting the gray area that many of the characters inhabit. Everyone's objectives are becoming increasingly convoluted as multiple factions within the Holy Knights are revealed. Dawn Roar, who once seemed to be on the same side as Gila and Jericho, are now clearly operating under different directives. Jericho's simmering frustrations, Gila's familial concerns, and the emergence of Gauther all point to a grander collision of motives and ambitions. As new allies and enemies emerge, the question isn't just about who will win the battles, but also about what they are truly fighting for. With Gauther's revelation, the 7 deadly sins are another step closer to full assembly. But in a world of shifting allegiances, their journey is anything but straightforward. Episode 15. In a tense atmosphere, Dawn Roar stands opposed to Meliodas, Ban, King, and the newly revealed Gauther. While the elite squad is intrigued by the formidable assembly of the 4 deadly sins, their mission is singular: retrieve the armor giant's head. In a surprising move, Gauther swiftly decapitates the armor giant, offering its head to Dawn Roar to de-escalate the situation. Accepting the head, Dawn Roar withdraws, leaving the sins puzzled, but relieved. To their astonishment, the armor giant stirs, revealing that it's still alive. A shocking revelation comes forth. The armor giant is no mere construct, but a transformed Holy Knight. Away from the scene, Dawn Roar is embroiled in internal debates. They ponder why Helbram was so keen on eliminating the armor giant, questioning why the new generation of Holy Knights weren't dispatched for the task. Gauther shares with his comrades that he'd made the armor giant don his armor to suppress its latent magical abilities. But now, with the armor damaged, the seal has been broken. As if to prove his point, the armor giant lunges, instigating a fierce battle. Meliodas hesitates in delivering the coup de grace, discerning the residual humanity within the transformed Holy Knight. Ban, impatient and disagreeing, wants to end it. Meliodas interferes, prompting a contentious moment among the sins. Parallelly, Elizabeth and Diane find themselves playing hostess to Cain, a new visitor to the Boar Hat. He is welcomed inside by Elizabeth, whom he initially mistakes for Liz, a figure from Meliodas' past. In the heat of battle, Ban impulsively uses his whip to remove the armor giant's heart, believing he has silenced the monster. Cain reveals to Elizabeth why Meliodas eschews carrying a sword, placing a mysterious sword on the bar, a gift from Liz to Meliodas, which Cain had accepted on his behalf. Gauther discloses a devastating truth. The armor giant is Dale, father to Gila and Zeal, lost to them for so long. Seizing the sword, Elizabeth rushes to find Meliodas. Despite Bond's actions, the armor giant resurges, morphing into a fearsome demon. Though Meliodas is still reluctant to engage, Ban and King are not. Elizabeth arrives, tossing the sword from Liz to Meliodas. Recognizing the weapon, Meliodas grapples it and eradicates the demonized Holy Knight. They prepare to return to the Boar Hat, but Gauther lingers behind, reminiscing about his first encounter with Dale. Reunited with the group, Meliodas extends his gratitude to Elizabeth for the sword. The implications of the events are staggering. The team finds itself wrestling with moral complexities. Friendships are strained, and the lines between allies and enemies blur. For Meliodas and Elizabeth, Cain's visit and the story of Liz add another layer to their already intricate relationship. As the 7 deadly sins draw closer to completing their circle, the question remains: can they navigate the murky waters of loyalty, duty, and personal demons to restore peace to a kingdom tearing itself apart? Episode 16. The newest addition to the team, Gauther, accepts Elizabeth's invitation to join them on their quest to gather all 7 deadly sins. Meliodas proposes a celebration involving a little too much alcohol, and in his intoxicated state, probes Gauther about their past. Specifically, he asks about who ambushed him during the sin's initial escape from lions. Gauther reveals it was Merlin, the boar's sin of gluttony, but offers no reasons for her betrayal. While under the influence, Gauther starts exposing everyone's closely guarded secrets, creating tension among the group. Meliodas advises him to tread lightly on the memories of others. A conversation unfolds between Elizabeth and Meliodas about Liz, his former love, revealing a layered contrast between the 2 women in his life. Both are strong, yet starkly different. Inside the Holy Knight's headquarters, Dreyfus returns and questions Hauser about any significant happenings in his absence. Hauser informs him about the rise of new generation Holy Knights, prompting Dreyfus to seek a discussion with Hendrickson. Meanwhile, Gila and Jericho engage in combat training, and Gila senses Jericho's distraction. Jericho recounts following Dawn Roar and witnessing their confrontation with a monster emitting 2 types of magical powers. She shows Gila an amulet she found on the monster's corpse, an item Gila recognizes as belonging to her late father, Dale. As they plunge into dark endeavors, Hellbram and Hendrickson attempt to unseal a gateway to the Demon Clan. The effort partially fails as they lack a fragment to fully undo the seal. At the same time, Meliodas shares his plan to retrieve his sword from the castle, revealing that it's part of a ritual relic essential to sealing away the Demon Clan. Elizabeth questions why Hendrickson and Dreyfus would want to revive such malevolent beings. Hendrickson answers her unspoken query, declaring his intent to incite a holy war. Dreyfus is horrified, but Hendrickson blackmails him with past sins, specifically how he conspired to kill his own brother to climb ranks. Suddenly, a mage infiltrates the Boar Hat and abducts Elizabeth, identifying her as the missing component to unlock the Demon Clan's seal. Meliodas dashes out, backed by Ban and Gauther, all hurled through the air by Diane to reach their destination. They land outside the North Gate and battle through enemy lines, but before they make it to the gateway, an overwhelming surge of magical energy emanates from the south. At the southern gate, an army materializes, led by none other than Arthur, the new king of Camelot. Complex allegiances, betrayals, and dark ulterior motives muddle the journey of the 7 deadly sins. Their quest to gather all members has turned into a race against time to thwart a looming holy war and the potential revival of the Demon Clan. Amidst questions about the past and the shocking abduction of Elizabeth, the stage is set for a confrontation between powers of unimaginable scale. The sins find themselves not just battling external threats, but also grappling with internal demons. And as they march forth, the lines between friend and foe, right and wrong, become increasingly blurred. Episode 17. Arthur Pendragon of Camelot arrives at the southern gate of Lions, seeking an audience with the kingdom's ailing monarch. Hendrickson insists that such a meeting is impossible, but Arthur offers a compelling counter. He has brought a companion capable of curing the king. Undeterred, Hendrickson attempts to usher Arthur away, but the Camelot king stands his ground. Meanwhile, Elizabeth finds herself imprisoned in a chamber with Hawk, the ever-dramatic pig. A desperate need to use the restroom turns into an escape opportunity when Hawk inadvertently demolishes the door. Elsewhere, Hauser, the Holy Knight, muses on Diane's absence, relieved she's not present. Dreyfus questions Helbram about Hendrickson's shadowy intentions. Simultaneously, Gauther employs his abilities to transform a hostile crowd into adoring fans, facilitating the group's entry into the capital. In a twist of fate, Arthur proves to be a formidable fighter, holding his own against Hendrickson. Diane probes King with a hypothetical query. Would Meliodas go to similar extremes for her if she were abducted? King believes Meliodas would, and he summons Oslo, using the creature to teleport them to Lyons. Dreyfus ventures into Hendrickson's enigmatic research center, only to hear a loud noise from below. Dropping through the floor, he discovers Diane, who deflects Jericho's killing blow with her sacred treasure. Diane withstands a series of concerted attacks, including Guilt Hunter's Thunderbolt execution, using her ability Ground Gladius to survive. A duel unfolds between Diane and Dreyfus, who strikes a devastating blow to Diane's chest. Just as she collapses, Dreyfus confirms Elizabeth's presence in the capital, sending Diane hurtling into the city. The citizens of Lyons, swayed by Dreyfus's words, turn against Diane. On the verge of giving up, Diane remembers her promise to Elizabeth and chooses to persevere. As the city crumbles, Gila, influenced by Helbram's actions, begins to question the original betrayal of the 7 deadly sins. Amidst the chaos, Diane saves Gila's younger brother, Zeal, from a collapsing building. Arriving on the scene, Dreyfus permits Jericho to deliver the final blow to Diane, only for Gila and Hauser to intervene, switching allegiances to protect her. Episode 18. In a desperate bid to defend Diane and Gila's younger brother Zeal, Hauser and Gila muster their strength and abilities to combat the unified force of Guilt Hunter, Helbram, Dreyfus, and Jericho. Their fire tornado attack successfully incapacitates Jericho and leaves a mark on Helbram, but both Guilt Hunter and Dreyfus remain unaffected. Outmatched and on the brink of defeat, the duo watches in horror as Dreyfus advances on Diane, only for Gauther to intervene at the last moment. Employing his psychological prowess, Gauther momentarily traps Dreyfus within his own mind. Although Dreyfus breaks free, he is severely injured in the process. However, Gauther pays a hefty price for his intervention, as he is impaled through the chest and seemingly left for dead. Dreyfus orders a tactical retreat, leaving Helbram with instructions to finish off Diane and the newly branded traitors. Simultaneously, within the shadowy confines of the castle's dungeon, Elizabeth and Hawk attempt a daring escape. As they navigate the labyrinthine corridors, they stumble upon Elizabeth's older sister, Margaret, confined to a cell. Vivian, the enigmatic sorceress, informs them that Margaret had chosen this fate, refusing to abandon her beloved Guilt Hunter. Elizabeth remains unconvinced. As Vivian moves to neutralize Elizabeth, Hawk valiantly steps in, only to be teleported away. Vivian incapacitates Elizabeth, but then opens Margaret's cell, offering her a chance at freedom if she dares to take it. Amidst the chaos, King arrives, incensed to discover Diane's battered state. Upon learning Helbram is the culprit, King's rage boils over. The ensuing clash reveals a deep, complicated history. Helbram is not only a fairy, but also a former close friend of King's. Utilizing his control over nature, Helbram ensnares King in tree roots, forcing him to witness Diane's impending doom. Undeterred, King conjures a formidable shield to protect her. When questioned by Helbram about why he would go to such lengths for someone so gravely injured, King declares that it's precisely because Diane is invaluable to him that he would do anything to protect her. Episode 19. King, still embroiled in his conflict with Helbram, recalls a time when he'd lost his memory, remembered only the visage of his attacker, who turned out to be Helbram himself. He recounts his subsequent encounter with Diane, a young giant girl who took him under her wing. A moment of shared happiness illuminates their past, along with King's repeated warnings to both Helbram and Diane not to trust humans, a lesson steeped in betrayal and regret. Diane falls ill, prompting King to venture out for herbs to help her. Her plea for him not to leave her alone echoes a memory of his sister Elaine, warning him about the dangers of neglecting his duty as the Fairy King. They are saved by a hunter who provides Diane with the medicine she needs. Time has stretched inexplicably for King. The hunter reveals decades have passed since King last wandered the human world. Diane's torn clothing prompts King to fashion her an orange jumper, which in turn evokes memories of his time in the Fairy King's forest, watching humans and making his own garments. When they encounter the hunter's family, Diane learns about the concept of couples and directly asks King if he loves her like that. He confesses that he does and promises to love her eternally. A flashback unveils the grim tale of Helbram's capture, alongside other fairies, by a one-eyed man. King's recollection turns darker as he remembers Helbram slaughtering a village of humans. It turns out Helbram took the form of the man who attacked King, but in doing so had lost himself to a path of vengeance and chaos. In the past, Helbram blames humanity for all the pain and suffering he's endured, leading King to make the devastating choice of killing him. King accepts his punishment, 1,000 years of imprisonment for the crime he didn't commit. Back to the present, King and Helbram's magic-fueled clash culminates in King's victory. As Helbram lies dying, he reveals that the helmet he wears was meant to be a gift for King, sourced from one of the humans. King calls him a fool just before Helbram draws his last breath. Diane reassures King that he shouldn't blame himself for the difficult choices he had to make. Meanwhile, Arthur Pendragon engages in a fierce duel with Hendrickson, who grows increasingly wary of Arthur's potential knowledge of the royal family's plight and the darker schemes at play. As Hendrickson unleashes a Hellblaze wave, Meliodas appears, effortlessly repelling the attack. Meliodas makes it clear he won't be leaving without Elizabeth. Episode 20. Meliodas confronts Hendrickson, demanding the return of Elizabeth, but is met with flat refusal. As blades clash, Guilthunder is seen carrying Grandmaster Dreyfus, recalling his youthful days of training under Meliodas. Despite once feeling inadequate, he finds reassurance from Margaret that he can become a holy knight. Dreyfus shares that Gowther made him witness his greatest sin, asking Guilthunder to leave him alone momentarily. As Guilthunder departs, the mage, serving as a direct link to Hendrickson, advises him to support the future, which is Hendrickson, and not the weak Dreyfus. Soon after, Guilthunder is dispatched to assist Hendrickson in his fight. The skirmish evolves into a 2-versus-2 battle featuring Meliodas and Arthur on one side, and Hendrickson and Guilthunder on the other. Though Guilthunder seems to have the advantage, Meliodas taps into his demonic powers to level the playing field. Hendrickson scorches Arthur, leaving him in a perilous situation until Merlin appears to extinguish the unyielding flames. Meanwhile, the group ponders over Bond's absence, unaware that he's exploring a hidden tunnel. Elizabeth awakens to find herself in a chamber alongside her father. Their tender reunion is marred by a sinister prophecy from the mage, who predicts Guilthunder will defeat Meliodas. Guilthunder recalls his younger self, yearning for strength and the approval of Meliodas. He had wanted to accompany Meliodas on an expedition to grow stronger, but was reminded of his duty to protect Margaret. This poignant memory resurfaces as Guilthunder duels with Meliodas in the present. Hendrickson, having dealt with Arthur, now joins the fray, making it a 3-against-1 battle against Meliodas. Margaret, perched on a tower, and silently imploring Guilthunder to cease his assault, becomes the unexpected target of an attack from Meliodas, which unearths and destroys a hidden monster. Vulnerable after the attack, Meliodas is struck by the combined magic of his foes. At a crucial moment, Guilthunder's memory triggers a realization. He recalls Meliodas's empowering words, breaking free from a curse that had bound him. He retaliates by severing Hendrickson's arm. Margaret lands safely in Arthur's arms, her descent almost ethereal. Now free from the curse, Guilthunder launches an attack on Hendrickson, seemingly vanquishing him. Margaret awakens in Guilthunder's arms, the battle seemingly at its end. The mage, identified as Vivian, rails against the turn of events, only for Merlin to step in and reveal that Vivian is her own apprentice. The revelation sends shockwaves through Vivian, who realizes that her master is one of the 7 deadly sins. Episode 21. Bond finally discovers the mystical horn of Cernunnos, through which he seeks to resurrect Elaine by offering his own life. He is joined by Hawk, who is concerned about Elizabeth's whereabouts. Elizabeth, on the other hand, is with her father, who predicts another separation due to his foresight abilities. The horn begins to glow and offers Bond a mission instead of taking his life in exchange for Elaine's. Despite Hawk's reservations about the horn's trustworthiness, Ban agrees to their mission, to kill Meliodas. Elsewhere, Gila and Zeal attend to a conscious Jericho, recounting their defeat by the 7 deadly sins and questioning her choice to consume demon blood. Merlin, hot on Elizabeth's trail, learns from Vivian that she's in the king's chamber, sealed by a protective spell. With a spell of her own, Merlin breaks the barrier, facilitating a reunion between Meliodas and Elizabeth. Dreyfus enters, confronted by Guilthunder about Hendrickson's defeat and their past sin. Margaret reveals that Dreyfus and Hendrickson killed Zarathus, setting them under Vivian's control. Dreyfus confesses but argues that the murder was part of a larger plan for a holy war. However, Meliodas questions the relevance of this to their current situation. Elizabeth announces that Gryamore is alive, prompting the king to revoke Dreyfus's title and send him to the dungeon for sentencing. As Merlin prepares to teleport the king to Camelot for medical attention, the castle suddenly explodes with Dreyfus going missing. The scene takes a grim turn as Hendrickson and Vivian arrive, the former having awakened demon blood within the Holy Knights. The corruption leads to grotesque transformations, including Jericho, who becomes a monstrous entity. Hendrickson, who has also taken the demon blood but retains his human form, demands Elizabeth. King is thwarted by a resurrected Helbram, while Hendrickson proceeds to attack Hauser. Vivian takes Margaret and Elizabeth hostage, leading to a chaotic sequence where Hendrickson gains the upper hand, injuring Guilthunder and stabbing Meliodas. Elizabeth offers herself willingly to Hendrickson in exchange for the other's safety, reminding Meliodas of their shared promise to continue assembling the 7 deadly sins, even if she were to die. As Hendrickson departs with Elizabeth, Meliodas is confronted by Ban and Hawk, fulfilling the Horn's mission. Though Ban manages to sever Meliodas's arm, Meliodas reattaches it and exhibits demon-like powers. Intrigued, Ban questions Meliodas about his possible demonic origins. Episode 22. The tension between Meliodas and Ban escalates into an intense face-off. Hawk interjects to inform Meliodas about Ban's dark pact with the goddesses, momentarily disorienting him and giving Ban the opportunity to strike. Ban accuses Meliodas of being comrades with the very beings responsible for Elaine's death, provoking an emotional response from Meliodas, who tells Ban to go ahead and kill him. The intricate web of alliances, friendships, and personal vendettas adds a palpable gravity to the duel between these two key members of the 7 deadly sins. Elsewhere, battles rage on multiple fronts. Diane struggles to contain a transformed Jericho. Hauser finds himself besieged by monstrous enemies, and King duels with his friend-turned-nemesis, Helbram, in an aerial clash. Gauther, meanwhile, fights against time and the looming threat of Guila's transformation. In an unexpected encounter, Hendrickson and Elizabeth cross paths with Dreyfus, who vows to halt his old friend's malevolent plan as part of his own penance. Back to Meliodas and Ban, the fight reaches a turning point when Hawk argues that if Ban is being deceived by the goddesses, he will lose his best friend. Ban confesses the torment he's endured since losing Elaine, prompting Meliodas to propose a truce. They agree to postpone their personal vendettas to fulfill their responsibilities as the 7 deadly sins. This poignant moment reflects the characters' internal battles, underscoring the lengths they'll go to protect those they love, even if it means putting their own desires aside. In a strategic move, Ban aids Guilthunder and Diane by tossing a hyper-recovery marble their way, while King remains locked in a soul-searching confrontation with Helbram. Helbram urges King to end his misery, offering a glimpse into the pain he's been carrying. Meanwhile, a desperate Gustav searches for Jericho, but instead finds himself crushed by her transformed self. Her shrieks fill the air as she implores someone to put her out of her suffering. As Dreyfus and Hendrickson clash swords and spells, both employing powerful magical attacks that result in a massive explosion, Hawk races towards the conflict carrying Meliodas. Elizabeth's safety becomes the primary concern as the dust settles, revealing her injured state. Hendrickson appears to continue his duel with Dreyfus, ultimately disarming him and declaring victory. Parallel scenes of desperation unfold, Jericho pleading with Diane to kill her, Helbram beseeching King to end his life. Both characters find relief, but in very different manners. King reluctantly fulfills Helbram's wish, vaporizing him with a sunflower beam, while Ban disarms the demon inside Jericho, sparing her life. A solemn but decisive atmosphere envelops the group as the 7 deadly sins rally, resolving to save Elizabeth. Ban and King opt to remain behind to deal with the demon-infested city, receiving unexpected backup from the Dawn Roar. Hendrickson, now seemingly unstoppable, dissolves Dreyfus into the wind, just as Hawk and Meliodas arrive on the scene. Meliodas promptly sends Elizabeth to safety atop Hawk and readies himself for a showdown against Hendrickson. Just as all appears bleak, reinforcements arrive. Diane and the Holy Knights join Meliodas and King in an all-out assault against Hendrickson. Yet, Hendrickson seems indomitable, showing his true colors when he unveils a concealed demon, the very source of the chaos. As the towering wall concealing this malevolent entity crumbles, Hendrickson gloatingly reveals its existence, adding another layer of complexity to an already intricate battle. The stakes soar to an unprecedented height, fusing personal vendettas, moral dilemmas, and strategic alliances into a multifaceted conflict that teeters on the edge of despair and hope. The characters are put to the ultimate test, questioning friendships, challenging moral codes, and facing their deepest fears. As the curtain falls, one can't help but wonder, what lengths will the 7 deadly sins go to in order to restore peace? What sacrifices will be made and what lines will be crossed? Episode 23. The situation reaches a perilous peak as Hendrickson unveils the demon corpse, a disquieting source of malevolent power that has been at the crux of the entire conflict. Gauther identifies the dark magic emanating from it, connecting it to the new generation. Hendrickson traces back the macabre history of the corpse, revealing its discovery 2 decades ago. With newfound energy derived from the red demon, he lashes out at the 7 deadly sins. Ban is pierced, but exhibits astonishing resolve. Asserting that he had killed a red demon long ago, Ban subdues Hendrickson and eradicates the demon corpse. Realizing the labyrinthine depths of the threat they face, the sins descend into a pit created by Ban's attack. Diane remains above to serve as a sentinel. A trail of blood guides them to Hendrickson, who is discovered near the carcass of a gray demon. In a horrifying ritual, he injects himself with its blood, undergoing a grotesque transformation into a darker, horned entity. Above ground, the Holy Knights grapple with uncertainty, questioning Hendrickson's role in the calamities that have befallen them. Guilt Hunter quells the doubt, emphasizing that their true saviors were the 7 deadly sins. A cataclysmic eruption catapults Diane through the air as Hendrickson bursts from underground, unleashing an onslaught against the Holy Knights. Even the collective force of Dawnroar, Guilt Hunter, Gila, and Hauser proves futile against him. Elizabeth, now conscious, cries out in despair, pleading for everyone to flee. Hendrickson seems unstoppable, laying waste to those who oppose him. As Meliodas strains to shield Elizabeth, he falls. At this critical juncture, Hendrickson launches his lethal, dead-end attack, but Hawk intervenes, paying the ultimate price to protect Meliodas and Elizabeth. This heart-wrenching moment marks a seismic shift. Elizabeth's grief awakens an inherent dormant power, the druid priestess blood within her, and her status as an apostle of the goddesses. A radiant light envelops the battlefield, restoring life and hope, observed from a distance by a revived Veronica. Confronting Hendrickson, Elizabeth inquires about the motive behind his malevolent crusade. He cites revenge against those who imprisoned the demon race. Unveiling her newfound power, Elizabeth counters Hendrickson's dark nebula with a luminous sphere of light, neutralizing his attack and healing the wounded. But the demonically enhanced Hendrickson persists, and the battle rages on. In a stunning maneuver, Hendrickson immobilizes Guilt Hunter mid-attack. Just when it seems that all is lost, Meliodas intervenes, deflecting the blow and striking Hendrickson with an earth-shaking punch. Meliodas's words echo with indomitable spirit. Never give up, because the 7 deadly sins are here. Episode 24. The 7 deadly sins, with Meliodas at the helm, lay siege to Hendrickson, who now wields demonic powers beyond imagination. As the Holy Knights bear witness, Gauther employs his telepathic abilities to relay Meliodas's strategic directives to their teammates. While Meliodas takes the brunt of a frontal assault on Hendrickson, his comrades execute a multi-directional offensive. Yet, Meliodas seems unfazed by the collateral damage he suffers from their attacks. He has a plan. Using Revenge Counter, he absorbs the collective energy of the assaults, dangerously supercharging himself to the brink of self-destruction. Hendrickson attempts a desperate escape, but is imprisoned mid-flight by Grimoire's magic. Meliodas delivers the final blow, obliterating Hendrickson. As the dust settles, Meliodas collapses, his life hanging in the balance. Elizabeth rushes to his side, and the two share a brief but poignant glance, interrupted by the arrival of the king. The Holy Knights, repentant and humbled, kneel before the sovereign, who sentences them to continue their duties, this time to rebuild and protect the kingdom they once fractured. The king extends his gratitude to the 7 deadly sins for their unwavering loyalty and praises Elizabeth for her courage and resolve. Emotions swell as characters take stock of the aftermath. Hawk, previously believed dead, is miraculously revived, sparking a celebration among the comrades. Surprises continue to unfold. Veronica is alive. Diane temporarily shrinks due to Merlin's potion, and romantic threads are teased but left unresolved. As the Kingdom of Lions begins its process of rebuilding, ominous mysteries linger. The coffin of eternal darkness is missing, and an enigmatic bird-like creature is sighted, flying south. Meliodas reveals to Elizabeth that their quest isn't over. one sin remains to be found. As they prepare to embark on their next adventure, Ban announces his temporary departure, and Meliodas ponders questions about his clouded past. An older memory resurfaces, a promise between Meliodas and Liz that they'll meet again, casting an enigmatic shadow over their future. Ending thus concludes the enthralling, action-packed, and emotionally charged first season of The 7 Deadly Sins. As we bid adieu to this chapter, the narrative leaves us with more questions than answers, paving the way for what promises to be an even more riveting season ahead. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If you enjoyed the ride as much as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on what comes next.